Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, August 29th, 2024. Time for another show, nearly at the end of the month. I guess this is it for August, this week anyway. And, well, we're celebrating August, or the end of August, by screwing up the timing at the beginning of the show. Just every day. We're going to do that every day. There's been something standing in the way of getting the show started right on the mark. But I think we'll manage for today. Of course, we're going to have to try and get the show off the air right at the mark today because Justice is traveling and the Netroots radio ship of state is on, well, can ships be on autopilot? I guess so. The plane of state, I guess, is on autopilot for today. So anyway, lots to catch up on, of course, and good opportunity to do it. We're starting to fall behind because of the number of various Trump antics, and we've spent some extra time on a couple of other interesting stories that were just fun. And fun's over. Damn it, you got to catch up with what's happening these days. By the way, I spent some time yesterday the day before, all days basically, on RFK Jr.'s various antics and his various, situations he finds himself in, puts himself in, with dead animals. And we went over I guess the latest breaking one was the whale head thing, which we found out about, we probably did that 2 days ago. And then yesterday I realized, now I understand kind of why the story surfaced and who Kick Kennedy is. Kathleen is her real name, but Kick is the nickname that they chose for her because they're totally not weirdo New England prepster types. Anyway, I'm sure she's a nice lady. And a wonderful actress. I was a little bit startled to find out that, she's an actress, and I mean actress enough that she finds herself in the line of sight of Ben Affleck, I guess. So there's something to it, I guess. I don't know what kind of an acting career it is. I guess I could have spent a minute or two on the fact that, look, familial connections are important to a lot of people, more so perhaps to Kennedy's than most. But on the acting career front, I don't know how critical, has she been outspoken like the rest of her family in criticism of her dad's political stuff? I haven't even really taken a look at that. But of course, RFK Jr. is married to Cheryl Hines, right? And she's an actress. And so I noticed, for instance, that Kick Kennedy has gotten some of her acting work in productions that also featured Cheryl Hines. So it's kind of nice to be able to do that for your kids, stepkids, I guess, and help them out. Families do that sort of thing. There's nothing terribly unusual about it. Except, as a Kennedy, this is the sort of world you have access to, whatever. I was just wondering, whether she's I'm just sort of curious about whether or not she wishes she hadn't told that whalehead story back in 2012. But back in 2012, speaking to Town and Country magazine, it seemed harmless enough, except, come on, how is that a story that's harmless? You're a Kennedy. It's going to come back to haunt you at some point. Anyway, so we spent some time on that, and I made some mention of the fact that the bear story, which was the first of the ones that I became aware of, where he's just doing wrong things with dead animals. Although apparently there was an incident over barbecuing what some people thought was a dog that he photographed and, circulated the pictures. But then he said it was a goat, which would be a more normal thing, I guess, to barbecue. People do eat goat. People eat dog, but, maybe more normal-ish, but maybe not also. And, of course, putting a whole goat on a barbecue. I don't know. I don't know how you cook a goat anyway, so what do I know? But my brother Mark had sent me the NPR reporting on the whalehead thing, and I looked at that. And then he has sent me the NPR reporting on the bear thing. And I think we told the story more or less correct, although I was a little puzzled because I didn't read the details of it. Okay, well, how do you come across the bear in the first place? How did you find the bear? I don't know. I was hoping that if there was any normalcy involved in the story at all, that, okay, well, RFK, I guess, hit the bear. Or would say somebody else hit the bear and I witnessed it, as opposed to just saying there's a dead bear. I adjudge that this thing is a fresh kill and I'll take it. It was just sort of an interesting thing to do in life in general. But, so as it turns out, according to this story, a motorist ahead of him hits the bear and he decides the bear is in pretty good shape. Well, the bear's dead. The bear's been essentially instantly killed by the car unless he comes up and he says, this bear is so fresh, it's still alive. I'll just wait here for it to die or kill it and then take it. But he still claims he was going to eat it. And I did wonder, well, what were you doing in bear country in the first place? I mean, you go visiting. I don't know. He goes to places that are wild and free and have bear cubs in numbers that they'll sometimes get hit by cars. And the answer is, well, I was falconing. And I thought, another F- answer for RFK Jr. In terms of normalcy and relating to regular people. I was falconing, as people will do. And I would have accepted, by the way, an answer like, and by the way, I understand falconing is the sport of rich dilettantes like me. And it's expensive to be in falconing and falconry. And you got to feed your falcons. And guess what they eat? They eat meat, and meat is expensive. It's expensive enough. It's hard enough these days to make ends meet around the kitchen table, even if it's in Hyannisport. And now I got to feed a falcon as well. And had he said I was going to feed that falcon for a year on that bear, I might have said, maybe this makes sense. There's already animals in the car. I'm going to have, by the way, did the falcon ride the whole time saying, oh my God, I'm starving. There's something smells so good in the trunk of this car. And I'm just going crazy the whole time. Or does the little hood keep them under wraps? Anyway, so normal guy, RFK Jr., daughter kick, just letting you know what normal things Kennedys do with their day. He's always in a rush. He can't freeze the bear. He can't eat the bear. He can't, what was the other one? He can't have anybody else store the whale head, but he's got to strap it to the car because he's leaving. He's on his way back to Mount Kisco that day. For a guy who has time to be falconing, hanging out in Hyannisport, this guy has no control whatsoever over his schedule. He has no assistants that can freeze whale heads for him. I believe it's time for him to drop out of the race. So I think he's indulged just in that. Greg Dworkin is here. It's coffee time. I've got mine. My turn to sip. Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Oh, good morning. I got mine, so I'm just okay.
All right. I'll drink, you talk, and then we'll switch again.
Well, the thing is about JFK, RFK, Eddie Kennedy, Jr., triple, whatever, the whole family's weird. And they have been for a long time. And it wouldn't surprise me if Kennedy said, I was training the Falcon to go attack John Kerry when he's windsurfing.
Yeah, that's kind of about the speed, right? That's the only thing I guess you could have said that would be worse. Well, why did you let the campaign go? I was windsurfing. Are you kidding? You can't tell people that. All right, well, tell them I was falconing. No, what? Are you out of your mind?
Right. And also he
mowing
likes
the lawn,
to train the Falcon to go after people who put Swiss cheese on cheesesteaks in Philadelphia.
Right. As dumb as it sounds, the other rich idiot figured out, I got to tell people I'm clearing brush on a ranch. Come on. At least that's, Tim
he could
Walz
stick
would
to
do
a story,
that.
Especially if it was a 3-word story. You got one of the words wrong, but, because that was his strategery, but it worked for him.
Yeah.
Barely the first time.
Yeah. All right. But there it is. RFK.
So nobody cares about
not getting my
RFK
vote.
Jr. except for reprobate MAGA people who truly think that Tim Walz is so damaged he's about to drop out, that Joe Biden is still plotting to come back.
Yes, well, he's very energetic.
There's going to be a coup and he's going to take over the nomination. And they think that RFK Jr. is important.
Yeah, and his Falcons.
And I think, the only thing that RFK Jr. brings up to me, which I'm sort of, noting for the record, is that this is the time every year in the 4-year cycle where I'm reminded that I really hate Ralph Nader.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just reminded of it every 4 years by things like, even mention of a third party. Not Perot, because Perot didn't change the election one way or the other. That's a zombie myth that never dies, but he didn't win it for Clinton. Clinton won it for Clinton. And H.W. Bush lost it for H.W. Bush. But Ralph Nader.
Okay, well, I don't think he doesn't come up.
Ever since then, and certainly before, but absolutely ever since then, I have no time for third parties.
Okay. Yeah.
Cornel West, not anybody else. Just go away.
Okay. Fine by me. He did, in fact, go away, although I guess he's endorsed Trump, and I think he's angling for like a cabinet seat or something. Although, and Trump is angling to make him his vice president.
Well, that's
despite
the thing.
J.D. Vance.
So he made J.D. Vance disappear for a little while. Although Vance keeps saying, "No, look at me, look at me." Kamala Harris can go to hell over this Arlington stuff, which we're going to get to.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because it's still a big story. But
Kamala
Harris can go to hell. I don't really
care
care what she thinks about Arlington. Oh, that's J.D. Vance jumping up and down so that he notices him.
Yeah, well, that's what he does. He's an attention seeker.
So here's the thing, and let's talk about talking. Let's talk about, conveying information, campaigning and such. First of all, I have this really interesting thread from Rachel Janfaza over on Twitter, a journalist covering young people. For Politico, for the New York Times, for Teen Vogue. Oh. And she writes, in a listening session last night, young people confirmed what was clearly the DNC's thesis in bringing creators to the convention. Many watched the convention via clips on social rather than cable or by reading traditional news. Duh, I told you, but she's confirming.
So that's why it was so smart for her to tell you, because we told you, and so we're smart.
But it's true.
Well, we saw that this was happening. How could you miss it? It was happening to us, and we're not even young.
Well, we brought it up because for some reason the older pundits have this fixation on, oh my gosh, the Trump campaign is spending $37.97 on an ad, which may or may not actually go up on the air, but certainly will be on Facebook, about immigration and caravan. Who cares? People don't watch TV.
Right. Well, if you're still aiming at TV
the
commercials.
Thesis, so that this is just more confirmation of that.
Okay.
So she says, here's some quotes. 27-year-old. None of my friends really watched it like on traditional cable or anything, but they saw it on Instagram, they saw it on Facebook, they saw it on TikTok, and they saw it on Snapchat. A 24-year-old said, it was interesting to really watch it in the time of TikTok, I think, and see different clips of the show up throughout the day. I had several friends tell me, I'm not going to watch it. I'll just watch the clips, which is actually what my 30-ish son told me.
Yeah, and what your 50-ish host does every time on these set play things.
Everything. I always watch anything.
Yeah.
Are you going to watch the debate tonight?
Because I'm young at heart.
Are you going to watch the interview tonight? I don't know. I'll get the clips tomorrow.
Yeah, and I do. And I didn't even realize, I didn't really take stock of what that meant. Because I don't compare my viewing habits to younger people. They're
but
different.
You're right with them, fellow kids.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's mostly I'm still watching TV. But I'm just watching dumb, non-important things, and then the next day I'll go get the important things.
So this is a 20-year-old for the last comment here. I'm a college student. I was packing for school, so in my mind, I knew I wasn't watching the full thing. I saw clips of it on Instagram and TikTok, and I used social media to see the convention clips and highlights. So, that's why the social media, according to the PR report from the Democratic National Convention, social media had 4 times the viewing of TV broadcast.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I'm glad they're measuring it, too. I didn't really know how you would do that, but I figure if they can figure out every time somebody says that they need a new pair of pajamas and pajama ads show up on your screen, they could probably figure out if you're watching the convention too.
Right. Now this one I found really interesting because it has a lot to do with the whole way things are covered in general these days. This is Derek Thompson quoting George Lakoff.
Okay.
Lakoff says, when you negate the frame, you evoke the frame.
Okay, yes.
Okay, those are the words. What does it mean? Let me give you the classic example. Richard Nixon, I am not a crook.
Right.
What does that mean? He's a crook.
Yeah, well, yes.
Right? The more modern version of that are the headlines, and you could find them by Googling. They're just like all over the place. Jeb Bush denies his campaign is on life support.
Okay.
Which, of course, meant that it was on life support.
Yes.
When you negate the frame, you evoke the frame.
I see. It's interesting too. Well, we need a non-Republican example only because there's also the problem of like, well, when one of them says it, the opposite is true, regardless of frame. But
I'll give you the Democratic example.
All right. This is
in 2016.
Yes.
Hillary Clinton's campaign was pushing the "America is already great" hats.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't take the other person's meme and turn it around and make it yours without invoking theirs.
Yeah, you say
so don't do it.
You refer to their framing, and then everybody says, I'm already in that framing from the other guy.
So that's when Democrats did it, and it didn't work. And Derek Thompson brings it up because he says, this is a great line and deeply true, and you can look at Republicans now, and they keep saying joy and weird are weird.
Yes.
And it doesn't work because all you're doing is you're reminding them that Kamala Harris and Walz are joyful and they themselves are weird.
And they said
I'm not weird, says J.D. Vance. And you're thinking to yourself, I am not a crook.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's a direct, parallel. Just saying I'm not that. Well, you are that, actually. I just saw a picture circulated last night of Trump fans, I don't know, at a rally or someplace, a gathering, and they all had those pre-printed signs as they have at rallies, and that said, Donald Trump is not, capital letters red, Donald Trump is not weird. That was all it said. Donald Trump is not weird. That's classic for you. And of course, on the internet, the kids say, my Donald Trump is not weird sign is answering questions, is raising questions already answered by my Donald Trump is not weird sign. I don't understand.
Their whole campaign has been awful because the visuals for a lot of the stuff that they do with their props, we talked about this on the show. There was one event where they had Harris, giant letters behind them on a sign.
Right.
Harris, Walz, and then smaller letters underneath are weird, and they had the people usually on stage behind the speakers standing in a way that you couldn't read the lower line. All you saw is Harris Walz.
Not good. There was,
and they have a number of those.
That's the second time they did that.
They've done that multiple times. They've had signs that say, in tiny letters, Joe Biden, and then in big letters, is a liar, is a crook. All you see is,
or you're fired.
Liar, crook, you're fired. That's the classic one.
Yeah.
Joe Biden, you're fired. You're fired is huge. Joe Biden, tiny letters, you can't read those. All you see is a bunch of people standing behind Donald Trump with you're fired signs.
I don't know.
That doesn't work for them.
It's interesting, and I wonder whether the staffers who do that, don't watch things on TV, and so I don't know, maybe they're not watching the monitors.
I think it's the same staffers who did that donut shop thing with J.D. Vance, where they didn't check anything, or they went in advance and said, you hate J.D. Good, we're coming here, and we're going to film it, and you're going to really embarrass him. So, okay, let's go.
Yeah, that donut shop appearance was, if not super weird, certainly super awkward, but yeah, I mean, also,
it was awful.
It is weird, like how do you not order donuts
Tim
correctly?
Walz comes up with the Runza shop.
Yeah, give me a donut.
And it was just wonderful.
He was very weird and robotic there. I did get a chance to look at the clip, and it's just him he's got a list of questions that they said, humans ask questions like this. How long have you worked here? And, it's donut shop kids, like 2 months.
Did you see the parody of
very
him
good.
Walking in the park? Trying to talk to people?
No.
Oh, I have to send that to
you.
All
right, let's see it.
Absolutely hysterical.
It's
the guy playing J.D. Vance approaches a lady
bizarre.
with a kid and says, "Oh, a human. Let me talk to her." Hi, why are you out in the park today? Really? Oh, that's really interesting. And the lady
doesn't even manage
says
that
to her
much.
kid in a whisper, "Run to the car."
That's about it. I mean, his conversation with the donut people. How long have you worked here? And they tell him, and he says, "Oh, great.
That's interesting." Okay.
But that's it. He doesn't make anything of it like, "Oh, well, I've been liking donuts for, that would be also weird." But he makes no conversation about it. They give him an answer, and he says, and then, how long has this shop been here?
The Tim Walz thing is just so wonderful because he's in a Runza shop in the middle of Nebraska, I guess. And he says to the excited kid behind the counter, "How long you work here?" "Oh, a couple of years. I'm from here. My high school's right up the road."
Yeah.
And Waltz makes conversations. "Oh, really? I think my high school played your high school."
That's what you got to do. It's amazing that he can't manage that. And also, of course, the donut. What kind of donuts do you want? Well, whatever makes sense is an interesting answer, as opposed to what's your favorite, or what's real popular, or what's new today.
So again, on the theme of a conversation and how things are covered.
Yeah.
Now, this Trump Arlington thing is blowing up. It's all over the place. It is so damaging.
We tried not to even do too much about it yesterday.
It is so damaging because Trump says, "No, I wasn't trying to do." Yeah, that means you were trying to do something. "I wasn't trying to film a commercial." That means you were trying to film a commercial. "I wasn't disrespecting the graves here." Well, that means you were disrespecting the graves here. So that's at the evoke negative positive thing. And I have a list of, I'm not going to read them all, but I have a list of like 6 or 7 different stories this morning, different organizations. I'll read a couple.
Okay.
But the point is, this one is from NPR, Trump Arlington Cemetery altercation. And so it's posted on Twitter. Elon Musk slaps a warning on it. "Warning, this link may be unsafe." It's to NPR.
Oh.
And says the link you're trying to access has been identified by X or our partners as being potentially spammy.
All right.
And Tom Watson resends this and says Musk and X have slapped a spam dangerous content warning on the NPR link, shows how damaging this explosive story is to Trump. So you know what to do.
Yeah. We'll have to do that.
Right. I'll send you that specific link because I just think it's fascinating. But let me tell you a little bit about the thread of Arlington stories.
Yeah, please.
I told you about that. Let's see. Oh, and one other thing before we get to the Arlington stories, because I don't want to forget it. It's bad enough that Trump is doing the "if you negate, you evoke" thing.
Yes.
It's bad enough that Trump has this Arlington disrespect the soldiers thing. But not to get lost, Tim Dickinson points out the GOP nominee on his True Social site.
That's Trump, yes.
Is posting QAnon memes.
Yeah, that came up yesterday.
Jokes.
How do I deal with that as a
right?
Okay. Yeah.
And he says you won't read about this in the New York Times, which is busy controlling and concern trolling about the efficacy of democratic joy.
Yeah, right. Please, that's not a strategy, everybody. But retweeting these sex jokes will absolutely help. Yeah, I did see that, and I did see that like the papers it's now gone beyond normalizing his babble and trying to retranslate it. By the way, one of the big active Blue Sky accounts has I don't know whether it's a real thing or he's just fabricating the screenshots of it, but it would make for a great app. But the Trump gibberish translator for the New York Times, you put in what he screams and then it gives you the New York Times version of what he said.
Yeah.
It's really something. I don't know if there is such an app really, but it's a great meme that there would be an app like that.
I mean, they do things in small areas. They do things in big areas. The small area is when he said, "We never did this sort of thing because we all know Arlington is hollowed ground."
Yes, right. That's the small.
Hollowed.
Yeah.
Right. So other
change it. They just
reporters,
other
outlets would put hollowed, and then SIC next to it.
Yeah.
And
right.
the New York Times
just
changed it to hallowed because they
That's
just correct
totally
him all the time and clean up his stuff.
Yeah.
Without telling you.
Somebody said to me today, "I wish you would walk over hollowed ground. That would make for a great video."
So TJ Stiles, author on X on Twitter, says NPR reports that Arlington staff have never seen the level of disrespect that they got from Trump campaign goons.
Of course not.
And by the way, yes, Corey Lewandowski was there. That we were speculating. Sounds like something Corey Lewandowski could do. Well, he was there.
All right. Let's blame him.
His people, he trained them. He did it himself. We don't know yet. And the employee was a woman.
Oh, so now it's twice as likely that he did it. Someone needs to push this woman out of the way. I'll do it. I love pushing women.
Some people say that it's likely it was him, but, many people are saying, I don't know.
Right.
More to come. In a campaign photo, Trump showed a headstone from a combat vet who committed suicide. He didn't get the family's permission. Yeah, read that again.
Yep.
It's an outrage.
Read about that one.
This is the list because Armando was wondering this morning if there's editorials about this. And I said, I don't see any editorials, but I do see this in the Washington Post. Even Trump should know to keep Arlington Cemetery a campaign-free zone. No. From NPR, fallout from Trump's Arlington National Cemetery visit continues. From Time, what to know about the controversy over Trump's visit to Arlington Cemetery. I mean, this is all today. Yeah. Trump team downplays Arlington incident in an effort to minimize political fallout from NBC News. Rolling Stone, veterans condemn Trump's Arlington National Cemetery campaign stunt. And there's more. This is from The Atlantic. Trump dishonors fallen soldiers again. And then from Esquire, who the hell let Trump into Arlington National Cemetery?
Yeah, well, right. Keep in mind, don't ever let him in. Not ever. No state funeral, no nothing. But yeah, my arbiter of normie penetration on a story is, does my local all news station, which switches on for my alarm, tell me anything about the story? And yeah, the first thing that they blared to me is, controversy continues over the confrontation at Arlington National Cemetery. More
I
after
turned
this.
on Morning Joe this morning at 7 a.m. and the first 15 minutes were on this.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm a little bit worried about our own news judgment. And yesterday we were like, well, it was a stupid, terrible thing, and he's an idiot, and everybody hates him, but we should maybe focus on something else today. Of course, we were focusing on the theme of his being small, weak, and a loser. And we managed to make that work.
Weak and losing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was fine. I didn't know how long. You can never tell how long these are going to last. But this is very deeply insulting to a lot of people. So good. It should be.
What we were saying yesterday is when you cover this, and you will, don't make him look strong. And guess what? They're not.
Good. All right. Yeah, that was the key point that you were trying to. You can cover it all you want, but you can't be like, look at me, I get my way every time. That's right. Well, you're in trouble now. Good. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Sounds off. The show's coming back. Okay, we're ready. We were talking about Arlington, and it's the focus of the day today because the rest of the country said, oh, yeah, we're noticing this one for some reason. Dead veterans.
Remember how we pretend to care about veterans, says the media?
Right.
There are many who actually do.
Yeah.
But remember when we pretend to care about veterans, it's going to be tough when the veterans are telling us to care about this, to pretend that we don't care about this. Yeah. So we're going to have to cover this. And that's an important point for a variety of reasons. Or forget about the hypocrisy of the press. It's very difficult to focus on Trump when he's doing 19 different bad things at the same time. Do you focus on him being a misogynist or a liar or a rapist or a crook or a felon or, what? But Arlington is making everybody focus on the one thing.
Okay.
And is it indicative of things? Yes, it is. So before we get to specifics on that, I just want to mention some new polling out this morning, which gives you an idea of how and why that story is covered makes so much of a difference. So let's start with USA Today. They have a Suffolk poll out. Suffolk's decent enough pollster, at least when they continue to poll right into the end.
Okay.
If you stop early, you pick up late surges. And they found that with Romney and Obama, where they got the call wrong. But Kamala Harris surges ahead of Donald Trump in the latest poll taken after the DNC. That's the Democratic National Convention, not the committee. Harris has succeeded in doing what Biden never could this year. Lead Trump. So this is the first lead for a Democrat in this particular poll.
All right.
Kamala Harris has surged ahead of Republican Donald Trump 48-43. That's a 5-point lead. Trump was leading by 3. That's an 8-point swing.
Ooh. That's a lot. That's a lot of swinging.
That's a lot of swinging, man. It ain't got that. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. And this one's got the swing, baby.
Says who? Oh, that guy is on the other side now. I forgot.
Says Duke Ellington.
Okay. All right. Well,
the vice president's small lead was fueled by big shifts among some key demographic groups traditionally crucial for Democrats, including Hispanic and black voters and young people. Among those with annual incomes of less than $20,000, and the biggest change, 3-point Trump edge over Biden has become a 23-point Harris advantage over Trump.
Wow. I don't even know what to say. I mean, I guess people
don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing.
If you're slaving away for less than $20,000 a year, you probably were just like, I don't even care anymore who's the president. But then, actually, here's a good one. Okay. That'll take, that was it. All it took was 2 seconds to see this person.
This, by the way, because the election's getting closer, they've switched to the likely voter model.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay. So that is USA Today Suffolk. Then, exclusive, Harris widens lead over Trump. Reuters Ipsos poll finds also out this morning. Harris leads Trump by 13 points among women and Hispanic voters. Trump leads among white voters and men. 73% of Democratic voters more excited after Harris entered the race. That's a pretty big impact. And the top line numbers, Harris leads Republican Donald Trump 45-41.
Okay.
Sparking new enthusiasm among voters. And I wanted to highlight those enthusiastic voters.
Yes, please.
Gallup released a poll today. They're not doing horse race polls anymore, but they do like state of like what's going on in your head polls.
Huh.
Gallup partisan gap in more enthusiastic than usual about voting goes from R+4. This is, are you more enthusiastic than usual about voting? Republicans were leading that question by 4. It's now Democrats by 14.
Yeah, I can imagine how that would happen.
We're seeing 18, 20, 23-point swings in certain groups on certain questions. We're seeing 4 to 8 point swings on the horse race stuff. So depending upon where you started, that's either a big lead or a small lead for Harris, but a lead for Harris nonetheless. Yes, the swing states are still looking pretty tight. However, swing state polling is always difficult.
Okay, I can understand that. That's what makes them swing states.
They're calling me now.
Oh, hey, we're voting for Harris.
Okay, yeah, just tell them that without picking the phone up.
Yeah. Well, that's the way a lot of people answer polls these days.
I know. So, it's getting to that time of year where they call you at 9 o'clock or at dinner time.
Yes.
I think that's the best time to find you. And of course, those are the 2 times I really don't want to talk to them.
Yeah, right. I need to pick up the phone. I'm sorry to interrupt your breakfast. I'm podcasting. I'm an influencer. Leave me alone. You're going to make trouble for yourself. I should have been at the convention.
Anyway, so the point I'm trying to make here is that Trump is trailing. He's losing. He can't afford to look any weaker. He can't afford to have people be reminded of why they don't like him.
He's a small and a loser.
He can't afford to have people be reminded that he's a small man who's a loser. And so this Arlington controversy comes at exactly the wrong time for him.
Okay. I mean, it's not like he does timing either. I mean, every day is a disaster for him. So, but yeah, it's not a good time. If there was any question about what to do with the lull week between the high of the convention and the I'm now paying attention Labor Day.
Yes, and he's trying to take Harris off of her honeymoon, which is why he did this. He wants the media to focus on him instead of Harris, which is why he did this. He wants to use military as props, which presidents can be successful at. Remember George Bush and Mission Accomplished. and how it sent a thrill up Chris Matthews' leg.
But yeah.
From the media perspective, we hated it, but they loved it.
Yeah. But he's not president.
So, we know why he did it, but it was badly timed. It was badly arranged. It was badly done. It was badly thought out.
Yeah.
This is one where both strategy and tactics were bad.
Yep.
He shouldn't have been there in the first place, is the strategy. And, he certainly shouldn't have gotten his picture taken in front of gravestones with him smiling and his thumb up.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, I understand the desire to have the photo op, even if the photo op is itself disrespectful, but not just disrespectful, but illegal. But if you're going to have the photo op of me and veterans killed in action who really shouldn't have been because something, why not the salute photo op? Yeah, that's another thing to do with your hand. Why not that? He salutes North Koreans and he thumbs up dead Marines.
Arlington, where then that was taken in 2024, where he's got his hand on his heart.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what you do,
right? No, thumbs up, everybody.
He shouldn't be saluting
on the grave.
He's neither president nor a soldier. But putting his hand on his heart is exactly the right thing to do.
Right, and I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to freak out the medical staff. Are you okay? No, I'm putting my hand on my heart for the dead soldier. Oh, okay.
Right.
I thought you were having a
and there's no tampon on his ear for this one.
So he's all cleaned up. He's not. I'm surprised he's not wearing a Purple Heart.
Yeah. So Rolling Stone says veterans condemn Trump's Arlington National Cemetery campaign stunt. That's where you can find that picture I was describing.
Okay.
The former president's campaign staff was accused of verbally and physically abusing staff at the cemetery.
Yes, bad.
Let me just point out, even as an amateur and not a professional
staff botherer,
you don't want this headline. This is not the story you want out of this.
No, that wasn't what they were aiming for, I don't think. Maybe they're crazy. Who knows? But yeah.
And then NPR was getting all this stuff. According to NPR, when staffers attempted to prevent Trump staff from entering the area, they were verbally abused and physically pushed aside. In a statement, Arlington Cemetery officials noted federal law prohibits political campaign or election-related activities within Army National Military cemeteries to include photographers, content creators, or any other persons attending for purposes. Yeah, content creators are getting elevated.
Yeah.
Or in direct support of a partisan political candidate's campaign. Rules are enforced on all visitors. This incident is drawing widespread condemnation, particularly because Trump's campaign did, in fact, use content filmed at the cemetery in a video. And VoteVets, a progressive veterans nonprofit, condemned the stunt. He called them suckers and losers, et cetera, et cetera. You can imagine veterans for responsible leadership says real veterans know how gross this is. This is a new low. It's bad. I mean, and so it's just not going away.
Yeah. And they're making it worse in many, many ways, including, I mean, it's not just that Trump and the Trump staff were verbally and physically abusive on the site. They were also verbally abusive after the event as well. Stephen Chung, as we say on the show, as that's the sound of the prison doors slamming closed behind him one day. He's the spokesperson for the campaign when they really have to do dirty stuff. And now, he was the one that put out the statement that said, yeah, there was an incident at the Arlington Cemetery. We were confronted by a staffer there who tried to prevent us. Obviously, we feel for them because they were obviously experiencing a mental health event. That was their explanation of it, that the person trying to stop them was mentally unstable.
Parenthetically, I saw an unnamed reporter saying, I like dealing with Stephen Chung because he's nice.
Really? Oh, so it's but he says the most despicable things.
Yes, but isn't
the worst attack dog that
Corey
they have.
Lewandowski does.
I guess so, but neither did Hope Hicks. But I mean, I don't know. They said they liked her too, and then she flipped. By the way, Stephen Chung will never flip, and I don't want him to because I want to lock him up with the rest of them. But yeah, so he says, not only was it were they wrong, but if you tried to stop us, you are literally crazy. And we want everybody to know that. And they also then went on to call for the person to be fired because they're obviously mentally unstable and have no place at hollowed ground like this.
Yeah.
And they
so
want him
again,
to be
this
fired.
is not going well for them a day later. Trump dishonors fallen soldiers again.
Yes.
Right, Charlie Sykes in the Atlantic. And yet another thing that's bad for Trump is that this reminds everybody of what McMaster and Mattis and everybody else said about Trump's previous relations and comments about the military. They didn't want to go to the American World War II military cemetery in France because he didn't want to get his hair wet because it was raining.
It's made of
that they're suckers and losers. What he said about John McCain.
Candy.
It all comes back. You don't have to remember in all of them. Everybody has their own individual. Oh yeah, he doesn't like soldiers thing.
Right.
And you basically it's not difficult to just picture him standing there in front of a gravestone of a deceased hero at Arlington with his thumb up and a grin on, and the caption says, "You're dead and I'm not."
Yeah. And J.D. Vance would be there to say.
There's nothing inconsistent
about
that. You can't say stuff like that about Tim Walz to make it stick.
No one would believe it.
Chuck Norris-like memes that he has. And there's another one making the rounds, which is gross but incredible, about a woman who said, "Let me tell you my Tim Walz stories because we all have them." He's governor. Okay. Yeah. He just got elected governor, but he was a teacher. And, my kid, was sent home from school because she had lice. Head lice. That happens.
Yeah. In schools in particular. Sure.
And there's treatment for it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So she said, I was really freaked out and I didn't know what to do. And I happened to, have a contact. So I texted him and said, I'm really freaking out. My kid has head lice. Governor, what do I do? And he said, where are you? And he said, I'm at Target. And he said, okay, go to the shampoo aisle and then FaceTime me. I'll tell you which shampoo to get.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what to do about it. We're teachers. We deal with this all the time. No big deal. All right?
Sure.
Do what I say. Follow my instruction. She did. It worked.
Yeah.
And she thinks he's like wonderful. And
so he is.
You can't post stuff like Tim Walz disrespects the military and have it stick. It doesn't because everybody said, no, come on. I know him. He's the kind of guy who not only tells you how to change your oil and then changes it for you, but, literally, if my kid has head lice, you call him, he'll tell you what to do.
That's pretty amazing. It will make it difficult to turn him into, well, he said he invented the internet. So
yeah, exactly. Doesn't work. But with Trump, absolutely works. So Charlie Sykes goes through all the different ways that Trump did this. And then, of course, Esquire is a little more – that's Charlie Pierce.
Sure.
So a little more edgy there. How the hell was Trump allowed to use Arlington National Cemetery as a campaign prop? This is an insult to the over 400 Medal of Honor awardees buried there. And by the way, and everybody else.
Yeah, anyway, their medal is not as good as the Presidential Medal of Freedom anyway, as Trump says, because they're dead.
Right. And then Josh Marshall throws this in, which is kind of weird. Somebody named Ann Stone.
Okay.
Who is a right-wing nut job.
All right.
Posts exclusive. Gold Star families had trouble getting Trump into Arlington until House Speaker intervened. This is from the Daily Caller.
Oh. This will be interesting. So now he can blame Mike Johnson for this.
Yeah. So Josh Marshall picked up on that and said, the Speaker of the House intervened to help Trump break the law. I'm not sure that's good.
Yeah. That's a good point. I haven't seen that one.
Right. So that's a new one. And then one more thing I should point out.
All right. I'll do one more after that. Yeah.
And I haven't seen this written anywhere, but it should be written somewhere.
Oh. Yes.
Does Donald Trump's parole officer know he just broke the law?
Oh, that is a good question. Is he out? Is he currently on parole for the 34 convictions in New York?
Yeah, otherwise he'd be in jail.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sentencing is coming. Yeah, I guess so.
Sentencing coming up.
Yeah, so you've been traveling interstate to break federal law?
I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just asking questions here.
That's a good question. Yeah, and I mean, Mike Johnson, why are you helping this fugitive break the law?
Oh, you broke the law. Maybe you should go to jail now.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe the Speaker of the House ought to go as a co-conspirator. You knew he was on probation when you did this.
So I'm just saying there's a whole bunch of things that have come down, which we lump under the term fallout from Arlington.
Yeah, but
none of it's good for Trump.
Well, fallout is...
I mean, it's all good for John McCain, but none of it's good for Trump.
Yeah. well, that's true. Everything's good news for John McCain, so that's not even a fair test. But this is not good. The write-up I saw, so I have seen this written somewhere, is that in addition to all this, by the way, the employee who confronted him, and I'm still a little bit unclear about for whom this person works, whether it's federal government direct or an Army civilian post or an Army military post. I'm not sure. But apparently the person in question has made it known to Army brass, who have now given their statement on it, that she has declined to press any charges, though, despite the fact that we all know now everything about it was illegal. She won't press charges, but told the brass, I'm not pressing charges because I know what Trump does and Trump supporters do to people who press charges and who make trouble. They're going to harass me. They're going to identify me. They're going to come to my house and threaten me. They're going to threaten my family. I can't help you enforce the law with this because my life will be in danger from these guys. They screwed it up, but they're going to punish me for enforcing the rules. I'm not doing it, which is kind of astonishing. That's kind of where we are in 2024. Elections officials, in certain places won't count the vote accurately for fear of being threatened with death. People who work right down to the cemeteries. The police won't do the thing that you're supposed to do. Witnesses won't do the thing you're supposed to do. Cemetery workers won't do the things they're supposed to do because of this guy and his chaos agents and the people they threaten. It's astonishing. So it's got a lot of aspects to this story, and it could have been dismissed, I suppose, as just one other outrage, but there are now too many angles from too many interest
which helps
groups.
The media focus because they can only cover one or two things at the same time.
That's true.
They can walk and chew gum at the same time, but they literally cannot do anything else while they're doing this.
Why does Kamala Harris refuse to debate him in a cemetery?
She's going to have, I suppose we should mention for completeness sake, yes, at 9:00 tonight on CNN, she's going to have the interview. And yes, it's going to be with Harris and Walz. And yes, all presidential candidates going back to at least the 80s, when they do their first interview, do it as a joint with both the candidates, president and vice presidential candidates at the same time. So there's nothing newsy about that. And yes, reporters are incredibly obnoxious. And yes, they have to be adversarial in order to do their job, but fairness is not part of what they're supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be fair to Republicans. That's not your job. No. Your job is to be accurate.
That's true.
Fairness is or is not part of your accuracy, right? So if Trump screwed up at Arlington and he and the GOP are a criminal enterprise, that's what you report, and you don't sanitize it by making his coherence coherent or changing hollow to hallowed. That's not your job. That's not accuracy.
No, well, that's definitely not accuracy. That's not what the guy wrote. Why did you change that? I would like to know why they did that.
What he said, and you clean everything up to make it sound like he's normal.
Yeah.
And, you're exposed now, and everybody knows it, and so, nobody's happy with the media.
Yeah.
And no wonder content creators are getting so much press. And you're not.
Yeah, well, people turn for their news to other, I guess to things people like us. Oh my God. Look, this country is screwed.
They know that we're partisan. That's okay. At least we openly admit it.
Yes.
Patrick Healy and the New York Times don't openly admit it, but everybody knows they are.
Yeah, it's really hard to avoid. And the hollowed thing is, you pointed out, it's the least consequential of the things that they've done in this vein, but everybody knows,
proved, right?
Everybody knows that that there's a particular protocol for it. Why didn't you just follow the protocol that you always use? He made this mistake. We understand it's a mistake. We know how it could be made, but this is what was said.
Right. AP style book, New York Times style book. There's ways to deal with this.
Sick. That's it. And it's easy. Why skip? We need to save characters, save ink. It's digital. What's your problem? No one, and you had to also guess that there would be other outlets that would print it that way too, and then everybody would look. I thought it. Wait a second. The New York Times didn't say he said hollowed. Why didn't you say it? He said hollowed. Fairness? Okay. No. Sorry. Well, it's a big story. I'm glad it's blowing up. I'm glad it's seeping in at different levels. And there's something for everybody in this one, but the one everybody's sticking to is, hey, that's gross. And I think everybody kind of felt right away. Thumbs up smile on standing on a grave. That's weird. It's better maintained than Ivana's grave, though, I will say.
So here's another example of how things are going on the Republican side.
All right.
They came up with new opposition research on Kamala Harris.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I'm just telling you in advance that this opposition research apparently was funded by Wendy's, Arby's, and Subway.
Okay.
Because here is the big scoop. Kamala Harris's missing summer job at McDonald's.
Ooh.
Her resume and job application a year after graduating college doesn't mention it.
Well, mine wouldn't either.
Well, that is 100% the reaction of every professional who saw that. They started laughing and said, I can tell you about some of the stuff I did. I wouldn't put that on my resume. I'm applying to be president, for example.
I mean, well, yeah. I guess maybe possibly for your
experience?
First
job.
I
ran a multinational corporation for 35 years, but I didn't put down that I started at McDonald's for 6 months over the summer.
Well, yeah, all right. So that's not going to impress very many people, I don't think.
But it's a thing. They're trying to make it a thing. Talk about making fetch happen.
Yeah, I guess. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I assume that she actually did work. I guess there's always the possibility that somebody has made something up, but presumably there's some record somewhere and then they'll produce it. And I don't know, among the MAGA crowd, they'll say, no, I deny that. And the rest of the country will say, no, that was debunked.
Right. And I think the most common reaction after I wouldn't put it down either is I would actually be humiliated to have this level of journalism associated with my name. I'd quit before I'd let them publish this with my byline.
Okay.
But you have to, again, appreciate and remember this comes after trying to go after Tim Walz because his award decades ago was from the Junior Chamber of Commerce in Nebraska, not the Chamber of Commerce in Nebraska.
Yes. That's true. And, by the way, I'm not sure there was.
And I mean, this comes across. I read all this stuff, and the first thing that comes through my mind, whether it's fair or not, is what's the difference between John Cleese saying the People's Front for Palestine and the People's Liberation Front?
Yeah.
Palestine Liberation Front. I mean, what are you talking about? Who cares? Why are you doing this? Yeah. This is not important, right? Disrespecting the military at Arlington. That's an important story. You need to get that
Don't
right.
put it on your resume.
This stuff,
but
I wouldn't put my name on this and publish it.
No, that seems pretty dumb. And I don't know. I'd be curious as to how anybody even decided to investigate it. I mean, it is one of those things that you say, lots of people worked at McDonald's. Okay. I mean, really, there's nothing even terribly special about it if you don't like her.
If you have somebody's resume or CV, it's not, out of the question to assign some intern to go check every single thing.
I guess if you're bored, sure.
That's what, Daily Caller and other outlets do.
I mean, yes, although I guess I would be like, if I don't know, what can I tell you? If I had that assignment and I looked and I said, hey, here's her resume. I thought you said you worked at McDonald's. I don't see that on here. I would say, all right, well, the thing to do here is we should go and call around and figure out what McDonald's was it, and can we find somebody who says, I remember that you worked here, or call the campaign and say, do you have any pay stubs or anything like that, as opposed to, well, I looked and it wasn't on her resume, so scandal! There's more work to do here. This is supposed to be an actual, background investigation. So finish the report and then publish what you find. Not like I looked and it wasn't there, so that's the story. The story is that you looked at it? No, the story is, the story is that it's not there. Well, there's a million reasons why it's not there. Which is the one why it's not there? There's your story. I'll get back to you. No, maybe I'll quit. I don't know.
Well, it's crazy stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's just
so. Anyway,
that's okay.
That's the state of the art. That's the state of the world.
Yeah. Well, by the way, It's not just that she left it off there. It's Ronald McDonald came to her house to insist that she list it, and she shoved him out of the way and said he was having a mental health incident.
Right, but Tim Walsh checked his tires before he left just to make sure everything was okay.
Right, yeah, I touched up the Ronald McDonald's face makeup, make sure that he looked good afterwards.
Yeah, and tied those oversized shoes.
Yes, the grimace had lice, and I helped him. That's a pretty incredible story, by the way.
We finally got it done.
Right. You should have seen how much of that shampoo we had to buy. Target was out for weeks. But, well, that's nice. He applied his teacher skills and helped people out, and that was extraordinarily generous of him as governor.
You know, as opposed to the Chuck Norris stories.
Yeah, Chuck Norris just beat up each of the lice.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was helpful, but it took a while longer. Okay. Well, very good. You've successfully taken us all the way to the end of the hour pretty much here. So, and it was all about Arlington. And there was more that you didn't even read. It's just everywhere. And that's kind of interesting. And maybe if you included those in your list, I'll just put them in the roundup just so everybody can see how many such stories there are. And you'll all have them in your local paper as well.
Right. And again, it's if the trend in election enthusiasm with Democrats over Republicans. A reminder: there's a lot of Democrats that are just signing up now who aren't getting covered by the polls.
Right. Oh,
and they're
yes.
signing up to vote for Harris.
I had a note to myself. Oh, yeah. I remember when you said they were switching to the likely voter model. I said, oh, it's as accurate as that usually is. I wonder if they'll miss the mark this year because
they will. It'll undercount Democrats.
That's absolutely true. There's so many of these people who are brand new voters.
A likely voter is somebody who voted in the last two elections.
Right. But if you're
18 in 4 days.
Right. That's true. And it does, of course, that still captures Glenn Youngkin's eldest. So I think it's fine. And I just turned 18, but I tried to vote in the last election. That's the important thing. All right. Well, yeah, so they'll be undercounted and there'll be a polling surge. And what'll be interesting is, I don't know, they were all mopey and self-reflective for about 10 seconds and I never really looked any further into it when they missed in 2016. Now they'll miss in 2020 or 2024 likely, but hopefully everything comes out okay and Kamala Harris wins. Is there any self-reflection about the polling models? I don't really know how they would solve that. I mean,
Stuart Stevens of Romney era thinks the bottom is going to drop out for Trump somewhere mid-October.
Okay. I'm for that. Yeah, that may be it. That may be all that people can tolerate before they get fed up. All right. Well, thanks for stopping by. We'll check in with you next week. All right. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. So I just wanted to let you know, RFK Jr. just ate a llama. And I can't figure it out. I'm not certain why. Nobody hit it with a car. It just looked good. And it was at a farm and he just took a bite out of it. And then after that, whatever. I did see the other day there was a literal man bites dog story being circulated yesterday. Day before yesterday? I don't know. And I did make that joke like, oh no, he's gone too far this time, JFK Jr., but there really was. And I think Helen Kennedy, journalist herself, was pointing out, 40 years in the biz and I never really got this story, never actually cropped up. And now here it is. And they missed the chance, by the way, of running with the headline of Man Bites Dog, which was astonishing. But can I find that one? I have to look in my feed here, my scroll of what I have, my own feed. And dang, how come that's not as easy as it should be? Well, let's see. Blue Sky. All right, that's what I need. And I have to look through my replies feed because I'm pretty sure that's where I did it. Anyway, lots of other interesting stories today. We're still not really done with the Arlington story. And one way to continue with this nonsense is to read I got to make a note to myself. What am I looking for here? Oh, right. It was the Man Bites Dog. And I'll see if I can't come up with that story for you, just to point to it. I don't know. By way of proof, you might not believe I worked at McDonald's or saw this story if I don't provide receipts. Everybody's going to check on everybody. So, as I was saying, there is a New York Times story about the Arlington confrontation. And I mean, even that by itself is a problem. No one knows exactly what to call it. And there's a general dissatisfaction with the way the New York Times sanitizes everything for Trump. And in addition to changing hollowed to hallowed, there's just this general sense that the reporting is, well, it was reported almost from like the Trump perspective, and that the story gets to be, well, that person had a mental health incident. And I mean, as opposed to, there's no discussion in here that not only was that an unfounded accusation, but it's an extraordinarily offensive and outrageous kind of accusation to make without any basis. And it was reckless to do so. And, you know, there should be consequences for it, but that never makes it into the story. But the New York Times story, I think, also notes that the cemetery employee, it says right here in the subheader, that the cemetery employee declined to press charges after an altercation, you know, without assigning any blame to one side or the other, an altercation with the Trump team, and noting that they declined to press charges because of the fear of retribution. But I'll read you the Times story of it, but keep in mind that there's widespread dissatisfaction with how much sanitation they've done on Trump's behalf here, and making it just a he said, she said story. I mean, on one level it is that, because he said something different than she did. The employee, I think, is in fact a woman. But it's more than he said, she said. I mean, it is a he said, she said, but it's also he said, I want to commit a felony. She said, you shouldn't commit that felony. Is that an altercation? Is that a disagreement? It is one, but there's a balance sheet here. You're a felon looking to commit another felony. This is a federal employee saying, don't commit that felony. It's prohibited. Stop now. I mean, like, nobody says it's a he said, she, like, was the Trump assassination attempt a he said, she said story? He said Trump should be dead. She said he should not. Who's right? Well, we'll let viewers decide. Is that a confrontation? Was that an altercation in Butler, Pennsylvania? And we can't say who's right here. Both sides claim, something, blah, blah, blah. As it happens, Trump wins out in this one and wins the right to wear a Purple Heart and put a maxi pad on his ear. But at the time, no one was sure who was correct. It never was treated that way. It would be outrageous to treat it that way. Even I would tell you it's outrageous. That's dumb. You can't treat it that way. But that's how it's being treated here. So here's the New York Times objective view from nowhere. Trump videos at Arlington stir more fallout after grave site visit. And I don't know whether that's an updated headline or what. The subheader says, brings up a couple of these subplots. The family of a Green Beret buried there expressed concern about videos and photos taken by his grave. And a cemetery employee declined to press charges after an altercation with the Trump team, fearing retribution, right? That if a cop pulls you over for drunk driving, is that an altercation or is that the police enforcing the law? This is an employee enforcing the rules. That's not an altercation. It's it's unruliness on the part of the Trump campaign. But whatever. All right. So the other part of the story, long story short on the Green Beret part of it is, Trump was invited, it is said, by the family of one of the soldiers buried in this Area 60. But, it's really not up to them to, who gets in and who gets to use the cemetery for what purpose. They invite him and he can go and he can attend, and he should attend in a private capacity. And if there were private photographs taken, I guess, the family wanted to take pictures with him, I suppose that's something that the cemetery, they might say, photography in here is pretty strictly controlled, keep it private. But seeing that it was Trump, they would know that it'll never stay private. And also, it would have just, had they been more inclined to obey the rules and the law, they probably would have said, yeah, they're just private pictures. And then and they would have been thinking, they might even have been honestly thinking that they would remain private pictures, but then these people would probably tweet the pictures. Look at me with Donald Trump. I'm a big MAGA fan. I want my fellow MAGA fans to see this thing. And then it would get retweeted, and then Trump would see it and he'd retweet it. And that, by that mechanism, they would have laundered it into a campaign photo and possibly landed themselves in trouble, but it would be complicated and it would take 6 years to litigate. And the Supreme Court would say that everybody's immune anyway in the end. So, okay, here's the New York Times coverage. If you want to blame people about it besides Maggie Haberman, you can also lay some blame at the doorstep of Eric Schmidt and Chris Cameron. And here's how they put it. The family of a Green Beret who died by suicide after serving 8 combat tours and is buried at Arlington National Cemetery expressed concern on Wednesday that Donald J. Trump's campaign had filmed his gravesite without permission as Mr. Trump stood in an area where campaign photography isn't allowed. What ended up happening here is the family invited him, a family invited Trump to a memorial service for their family member, and they stood near his grave and took pictures. But guess what happens when you take pictures in a place like Arlington Cemetery? There's other gravestones, and you see them in the photos. They could have, should have obscured those, and blurred them in any photography that got released, but they didn't care and they never thought. That's the big deal in that one. So who is the family that invited him? These are relatives of Master Sergeant Andrew Marchesano. By the way, should there now be an investigation as to whether or not he in fact legitimately attained the rank of Master Sergeant and was entitled to it? No? Okay, I didn't think so either. Relatives of Master Sergeant Andrew Marchesano issued their statement 2 days after Trump's visit, which also included a confrontation. Part of the visit was a confrontation between members of the Trump campaign and an Arlington employee. The former president's campaign took video in a heavily restricted section of the cemetery known as Section 60, which is largely reserved for the fallen veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. A woman who works at the cemetery, that's all we get, filed an incident report with the military authorities over the altercation, but the official, who has not been identified, later declined to press charges. Military officials said she feared Mr. Trump's supporters pursuing retaliation. So, there you go. The big fear in 2024 is MAGA Trumpers attacking employees of the armed forces maintaining our most sacred federal national cemetery, caretakers who enforce the rules there because, well, Donald Trump has no respect for them, but it was enforced against Donald Trump. So now that rule, salute the flag, these colors don't run, back the green, as they now say when they're talking about the military, et cetera, et cetera. Nope, out the window, as usual. All the blue stuff went out the window when they needed to sack the Capitol, right? The blue is standing in the way of our Capitol. Back the other blue, kill this blue, and then back the other blue later. All right. So what's going on here? Sergeant Marchesano died on July 7th, 2020, after moving to Washington. Oh, wait a second. I thought Marchesano was the other family that invited him. No, Marchesano is the Green Beret who's buried nearby the family or the serviceman who was being memorialized by this other family. Okay, we've got that one. Darvin Hoover is the name of the soldier whose family was there for a visit and brought Donald Trump along with them. I want to get that correct. Sergeant Marchesano, who now you definitely don't want to be investigating whether or not he truly attained the rank of Master Sergeant, but you could ask those questions, presumably, because you're a partisan Democrat, about Staff Sergeant Darren Hoover's rank. But again, we recommend that you not do that because that's the sort of thing that idiots and a-holes from the other side do. And, you're probably not going to find anything. Anyway, relatives of Master Sergeant Andrew Marchesano issued their statement. A woman who works at the cemetery, was involved in this, declined to press charges because she feared retaliation. Marchesano died on July 7th, 2020, after moving to Washington to begin a job at the Pentagon. He had 3 children, and friends said he had chronic post-traumatic stress disorder from his time in combat. And with 8 tours, I think everybody can understand that. He earned silver and bronze stars during his service. His gravesite is adjacent to that of Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover, a Marine who was killed in the 2021 bombing at Abbey Gate outside the Kabul airport in Afghanistan. And that's the whole reason that Trump was there, to not so much because support the troops, because he doesn't support the troops, but rather I can use dead troops to needle Joe Biden and more indirectly Kamala Harris, because they died during the withdrawal from Afghanistan. This person died during their withdrawal from Afghanistan, and therefore that's their fault. And I'm going to thumbs up their grave because it's helping me hurt, we think, Kamala Harris. So I'm glad you're dead, because otherwise I'd have to use somebody else's body to make fun of or score political points against Kamala Harris, even if I actually don't score those points. The Hoover family granted permission to the Trump team to film and take photographs at the gravesite. I am not certain that matters, but at least that, there's that. Like, we knew he was going to be there and take pictures. It's not our prerogative to grant that permission, but to the extent that we have anything to say about it, we do. The Marchesano family did not, and filming and photographing at the gravesite for political purposes is a violation of federal law. Authorities in New York, wake up to that, please. That's a great point, Greg. According to cemetery officials. Yet, Sergeant Marchesano's grave was shown in photos from the visit that were published online. A video was posted to Trump's TikTok account featuring footage from Section 60 and the gravestones in it from behind, with narration criticizing the handling of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. In a statement from Sergeant Marchesano's relatives after being contacted by the New York Times, his sister Michelle said, "We fully support Staff Sergeant Darren Hoover's family and the other families in their quest for answers and accountability regarding the Afghanistan withdrawal and the tragedy at Abbey Gate." And it's not clear exactly from that whether they share Trump supporters' suspicions about it, or they're just like, hey, we fully support your quest for answers and accountability. I think you'll find that accountability rests about where you would expect, and that this is just one of those things that, look, the commander-in-chief said we were withdrawing. The enemy attacked us before we were finished withdrawing, and people were killed. And that's the tragedy of it, but that's the reality of it. It's also not something you particularly blame people for, but, deal with your grief in your own way. However, she added, according to our conversation with Arlington National Cemetery, the Trump campaign staffers did not adhere to the rules that were set in place for this visit, like specific rules for this visit, to Staff Sergeant Hoover's grave site in Section 60, which lays directly next to my brother's grave. Sergeant Marchesano's sister continued, "We hope that those visiting this sacred site," and she didn't say scared site, and they corrected it. She said it correct. Sacred site, "understand that these were real people who sacrificed for our freedom and that they are honored and respected accordingly." But, Trump's feeling on that. F that. I came here to get a thumbs up picture. F your death. Stephen Chung, maybe among one of the worst people in the world, but certainly among the worst Trump campaign spokespeople, did not address the statement from the Marchesano family. Can't really address that. Saying, when asked about the TikTok video, only that the campaign will continue to respect the wishes of the Gold Star family members who invited President Trump. F the other Gold Star family members. We have roasted them before, and we'll do it again. Right? Did it in 2016. Sergeant Marchesano had served 6 tours in Afghanistan with the 82nd Airborne and others in combat overseas, according to news accounts at the time of his death. His family is said to have sought privacy since his death. Too bad about that. Trump ruined that. In the aftermath of the Monday altercation, the Army has closed the matter after the Arlington official declined to press charges. Everybody else is keeping the matter open, though. According to 3 U.S. military officials, some Trump campaign members confronted and eventually pushed past the cemetery official when she tried to stop them from taking photos in Section 60. 2 Trump campaign officials, Mr. Chung and Chris Lasivita, had insulted the cemetery worker in public statements on Tuesday. Chung asserted that she was, quote, suffering from a mental health episode, while Lasivita said she was a, quote, despicable individual who, quote, does not deserve to represent the hallowed, but he, of course, said hallowed because he's an effing moron, but does not deserve to represent the hallowed grounds of Arlington National Cemetery. Military officials said that the cemetery worker feared that pursuing the matter with the authorities at Joint Base Meyer Henderson Hall in Virginia, which has jurisdiction over the cemetery, in case you ever wanted to know those sorts of details, it's fun to know, could subject her to retaliation from Trump supporters. Chung said in a statement on Wednesday that, quote, that is ridiculous and sounds like someone who has Trump derangement syndrome or has witnessed any part of the last 10 years. The Trump team had said it was prepared to release footage of the altercation, but never did. 2 weeks, I'm sure. Several Army officials, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss confidential aspects on the matter and also not wanting to be threatened, on Wednesday sought to keep the politically charged issue from escalating, but at the same time, they defended the cemetery official and pushed back on attacks from the Trump campaign, with one official saying that the woman at the cemetery was just trying to do her job. And of course, we all love jobs, right? Oh, I think they're going to try and destroy someone's job. That's weird. Since Monday, the former president's cemetery visit has become increasingly scrutinized for its political nature. He was there for a wreath-laying ceremony honoring 13 American troops who were killed in the Abbey Gate bombing during the U.S. Afghanistan withdrawal 3 years ago. Trump has said President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris bear responsibility for the bombing and America's chaotic withdrawal, and repeated his attacks on the subject in campaign events after his visit to the cemetery. Trump had laid 3 wreaths at the Tomb of the Unknowns on Monday morning, the 3rd anniversary of the Abbey Gate bombing. 2 of the wreaths were for Marines killed, Sergeant Hoover, and also one Sergeant Nicole Gee, or G, I'm not certain how she pronounces G-E-E, but a 3rd was dedicated to all 13 troops killed. So there were 2 identifiable MAGA families. They got their own wreaths, and the rest of you schmucks get, 1 more. I don't know. I'm not certain what the basis was, but remember that he thinks all of them, even Hoover and Gee, are losers and suckers. Anyway, Trump was accompanied there by family members of the 2 slain Marines, as well as Sergeant Tyler Vargas Andrews and one Corporal Kelsey Lanehart, 2 Marines who were injured in the Abbey Gate attack. Mr. Trump then accompanied the families and Marine veterans to Section 60. That part of Trump's visit was private and closed to the press and resulted in the confrontation. Private and closed to press, except for the press that they brought with them, or their own hired hands to film in defiance of the rules. In a statement, the cemetery said that federal law prohibited political campaigning or election-related activities within Army cemeteries, including by photographers, and that the prohibition was widely shared with those participating in the event. In other words, they told them, they knew they were going to try to violate that rule, and they told them not to, and they did it anyway. And when they tried to stop them, they confronted and pushed them and assaulted them, and then told everybody that they were crazy. For centuries, the United States has tried to keep military might and partisan politics far from each other, because, otherwise you end up with military coups. To avoid the appearance of allegiances to a political party or ideology, because of this, military members are forbidden from participating in partisan activities or endorsing candidates while in uniform. They still sometimes do it. And military bases are off limits for political campaigns. It was unclear on Wednesday whether the Defense Department would pursue a legal claim related to the episode. Campaigning in Erie, Pennsylvania on Wednesday, J.D. Vance blamed, quote, some staff member, unquote, at the cemetery for the incident and criticized the media for reporting on it. Apparently, somebody at Arlington Cemetery, some staff member, had a little disagreement with somebody, Vance said. And the media has turned this into a national news story. Yeah. Photos of Trump's visit to Section 60 were later published online, of course. They always were going to be. Trump was photographed giving a thumbs up to the camera, standing behind the grave of Sergeant Hoover, with Sergeant Marchesano's grave clearly visible a few feet away. Trump posted the video on TikTok on Tuesday that also showed the two headstones from behind as Mr. Trump laid flowers. Governor Spencer Cox of Utah, who published one photo of himself and Trump standing behind the graves on social media, apologized on Wednesday for including other photos of the visit to Section 60 in a campaign email that solicited donations. This was not a campaign event and was never intended to be used by the campaign, Cox lied on social media. I added that. It did not go through the proper channels and should not have been sent. My campaign will be sending out an apology, but keeping the money, I'll add. So that's how the New York Times covers the whole thing. I mean, lots of detail about things that are interesting and give us lots to think about, but not really the way the rest of the country is thinking about this incident, it turns out, based on our survey of the media landscape on this. Okay, so there you have it. Like I said, there are other stories. There are a few of them that I can share with you. Let's see. I'm going to try and, on the fly, figure out which are the most, interesting and ought to be included first. By the way, I guess maybe I can use this small sliver of time before the break, because the other one's probably going to take me a little while longer, to read you installment number 2, if I can find it, from Jeremy Freiberger, who promised us, 6 installments on the various swing states or states where there's a possibility of either flipping a very narrow Republican majority in one or both houses of the legislature, or the need to fight and preserve narrow majorities for Democrats in those state legislatures. And today, Minnesota, which is, of course, much in the news thanks to Tim Walz. So, as he writes, Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes. Fact check, we're going to count those lakes. And it doesn't matter if it's more than 10,000 lakes. It doesn't say, they're not making the claim that it's a land of 10,000 lakes minimum. Certainly we will excoriate them if it turns out that there is any number under 10,000. But if there's 10,001, you're going to get Pinocchios. But okay, you're going with land of 10,000 lakes? Fine. But it is also the land of hot dish, which is true, but there might be other states where they eat hot dish, so this is really misleading. Plus, it as it turns out, Jeremy's own birthplace and pre-20s home. During Monday's show, he points out we specifically mentioned another upper Midwestern state, Michigan, where a slim 2022 Democratic trifecta has been used to pass bold and exciting progressive policy. Well, Minnesota is a very similar example. As such, Minnesota and Michigan might be best portrayed as cases of all that would not have happened if the vote had gone only slightly less well for Dems. That means, yes, once again, even in a state where you now consider it to be a blue state, right? We say Minnesota is blue. We say Michigan is blue. Well, only barely. And that doesn't mean, I don't have to come out because of the way the Electoral College works and because it's a blue state now. My vote won't count. No. It will count quite a bit. And it will count in preserving a very narrow blueness. The blueness is always in question in these states. And even if it isn't, your vote might not matter in the Electoral College. Nothing may matter in the Electoral College. The other guy forges Electoral College votes. But remember, all of the down ballot races, including state legislative races, extremely, extremely important. Extremely important. Nothing that the Trump campaign would love more than to say, we broke up this crazy leftist communist trifecta in Michigan or elsewhere. They managed a trifecta, and the MAGA response to that is, let's kidnap and murder the governor. Now, can't you vote in the face of that? Can't you be bothered? All right. Well, in 2024, which is now, Minnesota doesn't have anything nationally remarkable on its ballot. That is to say, like no abortion amendment to the Constitution because they're already protecting the rights there. But what else could they come up with? I don't know. But there is, of course, Governor Tim Walz, who everyone loves, or as he puts it, Governor Tim effing Walz. So come out and show your support. You know, of course, there should be a big showing and a big surge in voting, and the state should be won overwhelmingly thanks in tribute to Tim Walz. He does point out that, of course, Senator Tina Smith, running for re-election, should win easily in that contest, but will win a lot more easily and a lot more comfortably. And, let's get her to gloating levels. Maybe she won't gloat. She's too Minnesota nice, but give her the opportunity, right? Okay. However, it has frontline incumbent Congresswoman Angie Craig plus the two narrowly Dem-controlled legislative chambers. So I'll provide you with some links and maybe read them out after we come back from the break, just so that you know where you're going in order to help and support Angie Craig and to help and support Democrats all over Minnesota. Links are provided. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Roots Radio. So, yes, links will be provided, and I guess I could read them out here now just so you have, in case you can't wait for the end of the show, and just got to go right now, of course, to research if you want to do that ahead of time, or you just want to take my word for it. My word for the fact that Jeremy is giving his word for it. If you want to go right now and support Angie Craig or research her, you can do both at the place we mentioned yesterday, Frontline, because she's a Frontline Congresswoman, frontline.dccc.org. You all remember DCCC, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. That's the adjunct organization for the House Democratic Caucus, supporting all of their candidates. Generally, I know a lot of people have complaints about the DCCC, but this will give you the information you need to know about her and her race, and the opportunity to donate both to the DCCC to help everybody or directly to Angie Craig, just to help her if you want a laser focus, to help hold/expand the Democrats' control of the Minnesota House. And remember that in Minnesota, they have the distinction of being the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, DFL. More than just D, there's some F and some L in there, some F and L as well, in their party designation. But you want to help and expand the DFL's control of Minnesota's House, go to dflhouse.com, right? Easy enough to remember. And let me make sure I have that all correct. It's kind of in lowercase, it's difficult to make out. But yeah, DFL, Democratic Farmer Labor House.com, to help hold and expand DFL's control of the Minnesota Senate. You'll never believe it. They have their own place. Senate DFL Caucus.com. I know it wouldn't be your first guesses necessarily, but again, you want to bypass the national operation and go direct to the state legislature races. Just go right there. I mean, the DCCC won't be sending money to candidates for the Minnesota State House and Senate. That they will be sending money. Probably if you gave money to the DCCC, a lot of it would end up in Angie Craig's hands. But you want to inject some cash directly there, you can do it. And you can do it right from the same starting point. Frontline.dccc.org. You want to make yourself useful in the state legislative races, dflhouse.com and senatedflcaucus.com. All right, a helpful guide, and we'll include some links for you as well. Thanks, Jeremy, for keeping up with this subject. All right. Now that we have a full segment ahead of us, we can focus on a couple of other different things. Always a good idea to if you're really looking to fill time, you can pretty much almost always say, well, let's do it with an Amanda Marcotte story, because she's usually thinking pretty much the same thing we are, or a Philip Bump story from the Washington Post, because his interest wanders into a lot of the same areas as well. I've always been wondering about this stuff. This is something that he sent around on social media on Blue Sky with the note that, I might be able to find that because I whatever the hell, reposted it. But he was basically saying, here it is. Philip says, I dug into the array of Trump products that you can buy that kick money back to the former president, not stuff that's sold for the campaign to raise money for the race, but to him. Money, just things that he licenses to make money for himself. Well, I dug into that array of crap that you can buy to kick money back to the former president, and I will say that I underestimated the scale, which makes for an intriguing headline. But the headline on the story itself, in fact, is how to give thousands to Trump, not that you would, how to give thousands to Trump without giving his campaign a cent. In other words, how directly to, if you were, a sovereign state and you wanted to buy millions of such products, even though you just say, you know what, never mind the delivery. We don't actually need the things. But sign me up for 10,000 or 10 million of these things, and this is money directly into Trump's pocket. Some other people get a cut of it too, but want to bribe him? Do this. Or if you're just an individual who loves Trump and for some reason wants to have more gear, and either, I don't know whether they do or don't realize that none of the money is going to the campaign. Because I think people's first assumption is that it is going to the campaign, but when it's Donald Trump, your first assumption should be, no, it's not. Anyway, how to give thousands to Trump without giving his campaign a cent. And by the way, C-E-N-T. His campaign has an S-C-E-N-T all the time, and you don't have to do anything to make that true. Anyway, the former president is constantly expanding the array of ways his supporters can put more money in his pockets. That, of course, has been his life story. Before he was a politician and people supported him for political reasons, there were just people who believed in his stupid brand and supported him for other dumb reasons. And everything in his life is about that. What does Donald Trump know about steaks? Nothing. He cooks them well done and covers them in ketchup. Why do you care about what Donald Trump thinks is a quality steak? Donald Trump doesn't know anything about water. Donald Trump doesn't know anything about vodka. Remember, he doesn't even drink. Why would you buy vodka from a person who doesn't drink? This is the most beautiful, delicious vodka, and it's the best in the world. I don't drink vodka, but whatever. So anyway, it's illustrated with a picture of him with his latest dumb gold sneakers. You remember that? Keep in mind, that's not a campaign trinket that's being sold to raise money for a campaign. It's something that he's licensed so that people will put money in his pockets. All right, here's the story. One of the defining characteristics of Donald Trump's rallies is the emergence of an ad hoc marketplace of Trump-related merchandise. I mean, that's really what the rallies are about. Getting inside and listening to the speeches, forget it. You'll kill yourself out of boredom. Or someone will kill you when they try to assassinate him and miss. But the flea market outside is probably the most exciting part of all the stupid Trump paraphernalia you can get, up to and including, stickers for the back of your pickup truck, tailgate that makes it look like you've kidnapped first Joe Biden, but now you want to update it and get the one that makes it look like you kidnapped Kamala Harris. Anyway, so that's it. The ad hoc marketplace of Trump-related merchandise is out there outside the rallies. If it is made of cloth, is red, and carries the name Trump, it's there and it's for sale. A businessman like Trump might be expected to have mixed feelings about such a display. On the one hand, it's a demonstration of the extent of enthusiasm of his supporters. On the other, it's a lot of money being made from his name going into other people's pockets. And that's got to, I'm sure that worries him more than he's encouraged by the idea of their enthusiasm. Who cares about that? Give me money. But then he's still making a lot of money off of his own name, too. In fact, he seems to be making an increasing amount of money selling the Trump brand at the potential expense of the Trump candidacy. On Tuesday, for example, Trump announced the fourth collection of his non-fungible token NFT trading cards. He's still doing NFTs. This is his fourth round of NFTs. They were passé when he did the first one, but he's on the fourth. And why not? Idiots buy them. I don't think you can sell the ape ones anymore, not a new series of them. But, he just says buy these and his troops do it. Anyway, so Tuesday he launched his fourth collection of NFT trading cards, digital images that are theoretically constrained to increase their value. And who knows whether they're really constrained. He may just be, cheating you. You may recall the flurry of excitement around NFTs a few years ago, with similar images inexplicably selling for thousands of dollars before plunging in value, of course. Trump was late to this game, but he's stuck with it, probably because Trump's NFTs offer something more than a poorly photoshopped image of Trump dressed up as a cowboy. They offer access to Trump, which is what really makes it difficult, because he's mixing, of course, the political and the personal. The money personally goes to me, but I will give you political influence in exchange for that money. That's called bribery, and it's impeachable and also a federal offense. And another thing that he shouldn't be doing while out on parole or ever. If you are one of the first 25 people to buy 250 of these new NFTs, and really, if you do it, you're probably the first person in general. But if you're one of the first 25, I wonder if they ever run out of space. The website proclaims that you will get a staggering package of goodies. 2 VIP dinners with Trump, and that's in the same day, by the way, because he eats dinner 2 to 3 times a night, and 2 cocktail receptions, as well as 3 pairs of signed sneakers. More on those in a second. And some actual physical trading cards, among other things. All for the low price of, let's see, each card retails for $99, so $24,750. Get you 2 dinners, 2 cocktail receptions, 3 pairs of signed sneakers. Wow, why 3? And some trading cards, among other stuff. Okay, this package, mind you, does not include the commemorative card that is adorned with a piece of the suit Trump wore during his debate with President Joe Biden earlier this year. That, by the way, you need to spend, to get one of those, you got to spend $1,500 to buy 15 trading cards. And I guess they're still working on the suit that he was wearing when he was shot, and how that'll cost $50,000, I guess. The money Trump is encouraging his supporters to spend does not go toward getting him elected. And no, putting it in his own pocket doesn't mean it goes toward getting him elected. He doesn't pay for his own campaign, despite what he ran on the first time. The website insists that these digital trading cards are not political. Sure. I mean, wow. Okay. And they have nothing to do with any political campaign. Now, it's not that they're not political. It's what they mean by that is that this should dispel any expectation that any portion of this money will go to the campaign, so that if you feel duped by that, if you thought you were contributing to the campaign and sue for some reason, you lose your mind and switch sides, you got no grounds. It says right here, this is not political and has nothing to do with the campaign. The company simply, quote, uses Donald J. Trump's name, likeness, and image under paid license from CIC Digital LLC, which license may be terminated or revoked according to its terms. Now, what is it? CIC Digital LLC is a wholly owned subsidiary. They're the ones that put out the NFTs. But is that another group who came up with the idea and they pay him a percentage? No, they are a wholly owned subsidiary of the Donald J. Trump Revocable Trust, the entity established when Trump won the presidency to theoretically separate himself from his business interests. So here he is selling stuff based on the fact that he was president, is running for president, et cetera, and is pocketing the money that that presidency allows him to generate from his idiot troops, and it all goes to the irrevocable trust, which was supposed to separate him from all of it. So that's the final joke in all of this. CIC Digital LLC is different, though, from CIC Ventures LLC, which is also a subsidiary of the Trump Trust. The CIC here is presumably short for Commander-in-Chief, which would perhaps not be how the Founding Fathers expected that title to be used. CIC Ventures is the partner of the aforementioned sneaker salespeople, by the way. And in case you were wondering about how non-political the whole thing is and how it's so separate from his presidency, et cetera, CIC, does that really sound like it's all that separate? I mean, I guess put that in the column along with replacing all of the flags on the pins on his golf courses with presidential seal flags and U.S. flags as opposed to the old Trump national logo. Anyway, so back to the sneakers, right? Want shoes showing a stylized image of Trump immediately after he was shot last month? $299. You want the gold ones titled Never Surrender after Trump's response to having been arrested in Georgia? Those are $499. The Timberland style boots, $199. The orange Bitcoin / Trump shoes are apparently sold out. I never heard about those. They went for $299 as well. You will notice as we go through all of this that cryptocurrency is an undercurrent. That's not a coincidence. Now, perhaps you're simply looking to impress the guys at the frat house with your support for Trump. The sneaker people have an array of products designed for you. Sandals / slides if you're going to one of those northeastern liberal elite places. That's $149. A cooler for your beer, right? To $299. And Trump-branded cologne titled Victory, $119. You can smell just like Trump. Trump also recently plugged a Telegram channel for something called World Liberty Financial. Now, by the way, isn't Telegram the one that's in trouble, the founder of which is under arrest in France? Patrice Sinclair? Okay, that's not his actual name, but the basics of the story are pretty much the same. Anyway, World Liberty Financial is something he's been plugging. A cryptocurrency-oriented group with an unclear goal. Perfect for associating with a president or presidential candidate. Among the sparse posts at Telegram, though, there was an offered warning. Can you believe it? They warned you. Please be aware of scams and fake tokens claiming to be associated with, quote, defiant ones, quote, world liberty, or similar names. Now, keep in mind, this is from World Liberty Financial, but somebody else is scamming you by selling you coins as World Liberty, not World Liberty Financial. Or that's at least close. I don't know what defiant ones is supposed to mean. Do not engage with these tokens. And Philip notes, scams in crypto? You know, like who would have guessed it, right? There are, of course, plenty of offerings for Trump's more traditional base of support. There's the Trump Bible, retailing for about $60. The website also helpfully explains what to do if your Bible's pages are sticking together. And I don't really know that I've ever heard of such a problem for Bibles, but thanks for pointing it out. Anyway, there are also other quasi-religious Trump books that any true supporter will have to have in order to flesh out his or her library, if you have one. The newest is Save America, which Trump touted as a, quote, all caps, fantastic new capital B book, for which he, quote, hand-selected every capital P photo from my time in the White House, properly capitalized, to our current third capital C campaign for capital P president, in this case not supposed to be capitalized, of the United States. Oh, okay, President of the United States as a title. I guess the president is properly capitalized there. It's only $99, unless you want it signed, which tacks on $400. For $399, you can get a signed copy of the book Letters to Trump. That was the one where they had the story, the wrong story about the helicopter crash, right? The Letters to Trump book, $399, which is what it sounds like. The first book published by the firm responsible for these tomes, called Winning Team Publishing, was called Our Journey Together, which is now only $74.99. If you want the full Our Journey Together bundle, second-degree price discrimination, including a second edition of the book, one of Donald Trump Jr.'s books, and a Make America Great Again hat, you need only shell out $999. Donald Trump Jr., by the way, is a co-founder of Winning Team Publishing, so he gets 2 cuts on that. Royalties plus the profits as co-founder of Winning Team Publishing, just so you know. Again, that's interesting, too. Donald Trump's book, Our Journey Together, $75. Throw in Donald Trump Jr.'s book and a hat, $1,000. Donald Trump Jr. really thinks a great deal of his book, but of course the problem is he can't get rid of the effing things. But it's not about getting the product. It's about, look, it's much more efficient to bribe us this way. You would have to buy tens of thousands of copies of Our Journey Together to give us a $10,000, $10 million bribe. You can do it in smaller increments and just buy the package and help us get rid of this warehouse full of Donald Trump Jr.'s books as well. If you only want the MAGA hat, well, Winning Team has those too, though it doesn't appear that sales of these explicitly campaign-oriented hats actually kick anything back to the campaign. So it's interesting. You can buy a MAGA hat from the campaign and help the campaign, or you can buy a MAGA hat from Donald Trump Jr.'s company and none of the money goes to the campaign. And in fact, none of the money goes to Donald Trump. It goes to Donald Trump Jr. I guess there's probably some cut of Winning Team Publishing that goes to Donald Trump, the dad, as well. But there you go. There's a way to buy a MAGA hat without helping the campaign. Isn't that a great idea? Well, at Winning Team Publishing, they retail for about $30, the same as the Donald Trump shaped, like round, I guess, Bluetooth speaker, which is also sold on the website. Okay, they didn't even have to reshape those. They just used the, a Google dot and painted orange. Trump's fancier supporters might be in the market for a higher-end product, you see. A standard-sized bottle of Trump wine from the Trump winery retails for as much as $94.99, though the person who benefits would be Trump's son, Eric. He's getting into the act there. For that same price, you can also buy, as of this writing, almost 5 shares of Trump Media and Technology Group stock, which means I guess that it's trading for about $20 a share. Whether that stock or the NFTs are a better investment is a question better answered by economists, but it's been an unalloyed boon for Trump himself. And by the way, while you're there talking to the economists, you can ask them to explain second-degree price discrimination to you in the bundling that they're doing. We could do it here. As a matter of fact, we have certain expertise thanks to the editing team. Anyway, further along the income scale, the Trump Organization still offers memberships at its clubs and golf courses, more expensive than buying 250 NFTs, but a better way to ensure FaceTime with Trump on a regular basis. Trump's Pervalago Club, here called Mar-a-Lago, Sex Dungeon / Home, I'm adding a little commentary here, now welcomes new members for only $700,000 each year. But hurry, the price will reportedly be jumping to $1 million. $1 million in October. No wonder profits at Pervalago have quadrupled since Trump left office. Almost all of this, the NFTs, the sneakers, the memberships, the books, kicks some portion, if not all, of what customers pay back to Trump, the person, the individual, in one form or another. He made $300,000 just from the Bibles, for example, all while his campaign complains in fundraising emails to supporters about being outpaced by Vice President Kamala Harris. This is the contradiction that's lingered around Trump since he announced his 2016 candidacy. He wants to be both a businessman and a candidate at the same time. Except Trump, it seems, doesn't see it as much of a contradiction at all. Well, no, he never sees it. Why would he? I want this thing. Therefore, it's a good idea and everyone should do it. Except no one should do it, just me. All right. What can I tell you? So that's quite a bit of extra information to chew on. Let's see. Other things that I might sneak in here for today. What would be a great addition to this? Well, why not this one? I don't know. I'm holding on to this. Oh, you know what? Let's update a little bit on what's going on in the courtrooms. We started on this yesterday, and I have a Chris Geidner piece, and I have another one now buried in an avalanche of writing about this. Oh, access is denied. Why is that happening? Something must be going on with his website, unless I've clicked on a subscriber-only edition of this. But this is his latest piece. Well, we're getting around it one way or another. Jack Smith attempts to immunity-proof his January 6th Trump indictment, mostly, is the title of the piece. And just another follow-up and perspective on exactly what's going on and what he's trying to do with this superseding indictment. Donald Trump, of course, indicted again Tuesday, a superseding indictment in special counsel Jack Smith's prosecution of the former president for his actions seeking to overturn the 2020 election. The superseding indictment in the U.S. District Court in Washington was Smith's response to the Supreme Court's July decision holding that former presidents maintain some immunity from criminal prosecution after they leave office, including absolute immunity for acts within what Chief Justice John Roberts described for the court as a president's core constitutional powers. I just want to point out that this should probably be cleaned up a little bit because, logically speaking, there's really no way for a former president to claim immunity from core constitutional power exercises because former presidents don't have any core constitutional powers. But I guess the idea here is if you were supposedly exercising core constitutional powers while you were president and then leave office, you can't be prosecuted for it. Well, you certainly can't be prosecuted for it while sitting in office, and you can't be prosecuted now afterward either if you were plausibly exercising core constitutional powers at the time. The court also held that a former president also maintains at least a presumption of immunity for any official actions within the, quote, outer perimeter of that president's duties. Tuesday was not a political fight with the court. It was, in some ways, the opposite. This is worth pointing out, I think. This was Smith and his team saying, we will take your ruling as it is and show you how, even under that standard, that extremely stupid standard, this indictment can still be maintained and proven to a jury. So, important to note, Tuesday's superseding indictment brings the same 4 charges against Trump. I think they should add the insurrection one. Conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, as well as obstruction of and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights, specifically the right to vote and to have one's vote counted, as he had faced under the original indictment issued last year. Although District Judge Tanya Chutkan and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit both rejected Trump presidential immunity claims, the conservatives on the Supreme Court sided with Trump 6-3 in July on the question of whether Trump could still claim any presidential immunity in response to the indictment. Tuesday was Smith's next step, and the superseding indictment represents his attempt to immunity-proof the indictment, for the most part. Anyway, as I detail below, he remained willing to fight for at least one part of the original indictment relating to former Vice President Mike Pence's role in all of this, even if it will mean more legal fights going forward. And at this point, since you can't make it before the election, you might as well fight over that vice presidential role anyway. It is, let's be clear, not a sign that this will be moving quickly. Not at all. This is instead a sign that Smith plans to continue forward with this prosecution after the election, if Trump loses in November. So as we noted yesterday already, the DOJ-related claims are gone. I'm going to skip down past that part and go to the evidence ruling fallout and just read a little bit of it before we exit for the day. Evidence ruling fallout. Further, a 5-4 majority in July's case, with Justice Amy Coney Barrett breaking off from the other conservatives, held that acts immune from prosecution cannot be introduced into evidence at all. That was really one of the big worries of this whole thing, and how you would restructure the indictment. As Roberts wrote, if official conduct for which the president is immune may be scrutinized to help secure his conviction, even on charges that purport to be based only on his unofficial conduct, if the intended effect of immunity would be defeated. To that, Smith responded in the superseding indictment on Tuesday by making 4 primary changes. We'll only get through one probably before we have to exit, but Tuesday's indictment substantially changed the section of the indictment detailing Trump's knowledge of the falsity of his election fraud claims. Removed were references to information Trump received from federal officials as president. Those references were replaced with information Trump received from the campaign and non-federal officials. That's going to give you some idea of how they restructured this thing. They can bring, if they have the option, where they have evidence provided by campaign officials, they'll bring that and say this was a non-official act. This was the campaign speaking to the candidate, not federal officials and federal employees speaking to the president. That's the gist of the change.
From
Just thought I'd sneak that in.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, well, we'll try and continue with this coverage and get back to the action in court. I know it's going to be slow developing, but it's important to understand it as it goes along, plus many more stories from around the country and around the world that we want to bring to your attention. And Justice Putnam isn't here to do it for the rest of the week. He'll be back Monday, of course. We might not be, but for the rest of the week, we'll see you then.